let's talk specifically a little bit more about Saquon Barkley and the decisions that he made, that the Giants organization made, going all in on Daniel Jones. Now that is over. He's done. He's never going to take another snap probably as a Giants quarterback. Saquon Barkley's playing so well for a division rival. They're 8-2. What does the Saquon situation, what's happened vis-a-vis New York and Philadelphia, what does it say to you, Tiki?
I had the Philadelphia Eagles a couple of weeks ago. I called their game, and it was interesting. As we sat down with Saquon before the game, and we were just asking him what it feels like to be here with a rival. And the thing he said, I'm learning now something that didn't happen in New York on how to be patient, how to be a big play runner, and they can do it because they have a better offensive line, they have a better quarterback, and they have two stud wide receivers who make it so much easier for their offense to operate. And so he's in a better place. That's why he's doing so well.
Well, it's hard to be in a worse place than the New York Giants. It's hard to be in a worse place than either New York football franchise right now, frankly. I mean, let's face it. Saquon Barkley to the Philadelphia Eagles is an egg on the face to the New York Giants and their fan base, to an ownership group that knows what championships look like because they have produced them, but apparently they have forgotten what their glory was and what they've been founded on and who they are as an organization. That was an embarrassment then, and you knew it. You know why? Because of what's happened now. And I think that when we talk about this running back situation, Tiki, you sum it up. Saquon's around a winning situation. But make no mistake about it. For the New York Giants, that was an utter embarrassment then, and dog, it's even more so now, because at the end of the day, they thought that Daniel Jones, they thought they needed to give him this contract because they thought he was their savior, and that's how the quarterback position's gotten so inflated that you have some teams who right now are staring in the mirror at embarrassment because of the fact of how much they got it wrong. The New York Giants come to mind. Certainly the Cleveland Browns come to mind as well. And right now, the New York Jets, I get that they tried, but they're looking themselves in the mirror saying, we've got to get a new quarterback ourselves. Saquon Barkley's in a better position because he's got better players around him. But for the Giants, that's an utter embarrassment.
Well, Jacksonville's another team that probably overpaid for a quarterback because he's not worth $275 million. Here's what I would say about the Giants, though. If you put Barkley on his team, let's ask Tiki, they'd still be 2-8. I mean, nobody's going to convince you it was worth an extra win, maybe. I mean, they'd still be a bad team. And that goes with what you guys say. He's got two big receivers. He's got a good offensive line. Hurts is a good quarterback. So, I mean, he's in the right situation right now where he can flourish. On the Giants, without a tight end, a young receiver in Neighbors, and a quarterback who isn't good, I mean, he'd still be sort of a little lost, in the situation 2 years ago. He had a good year, great game against Minnesota, and the Giants got caught between a rock and a hard place because at the end of the 2022 season, Jones was playing well. They won a playoff game in Minnesota. He played really well in the game. He got a standing ovation at MetLife when they clinched the playoff spot against the Colts last week. So Giants are in a tricky situation. Okay, maybe finally he's going to blossom. We got the right coaching staff around him. So let's give him a contract. And they did a good thing. They didn't go kill themselves with this long-term extension, but let's give him a contract. Right. And as it turns out, it's going to be a mistake because Jones is not very good. So from that standpoint, I think one decision with the quarterback is not the same as the running back position. I mean, they gave Jones the money, and he turned out to not be very good, and they look bad. I don't think it's so much about Barkley as it is about the quarterback.
All right, we'd be remiss if we didn't address the 3-win team in New York, the Jets, and Joe Douglas is gone now. Robert Saleh is gone. These were the guys who brought in Aaron Rodgers, who thought, we're going to win a Super Bowl with this guy. When we start to assess the magnitude of this catastrophe with Aaron Rodgers, where do we even start, Chris?
That's a very good question. Well, I think you start at the quarterback situation because they drafted Zach Wilson with the second pick in the draft, and he turned out to be a bust, which put them in desperate situation. And they made a run like they did once before with Favre. They made a run with Rodgers. Nobody in New York did not like that decision. So if you think, I don't know what Tiki said, but I know the fans thought it was the right move. I know 2 years ago he wasn't very good for the Packers. He looked like he was descending. Last year you can't read on it, but, we kind of gave him a break with that last year in Green Bay. Every Jet fan was all in. Rodgers, I thought they'd have a great year. I thought he'd bounce back. They were due for some good fortune. And it turns out, he is an average quarterback. And I don't want to say he's shot, but he's not that good. So and nobody could have predicted that. Not that much of a decline. So to me, Salah's not Weeb Eubank. Joe Douglas is a lot of misses with free agents and draft. Obviously, he hired Salah, drafted Wilson. But to me, when I look at the Jets' current situation, want to kill Woody Johnson? Go ahead. But I'm going to kill the idea that they thought they had their Patrick Mahomes in Zach Wilson, and he turned out to be a disaster. And I think that's got a lot to do with where they are right now.
It's interesting you say that, Chris, because if you miss on a franchise quarterback, I put that in quotes, the top 5 or top 10 pick or whatever that's supposed to be your guy for the future, and you've completely missed, it sets you back half a decade, right? Because you now are kind of making a decision off of what you hope he's going to be, even if he's never going to get there. And so the Jets, as we saw there 2 off seasons ago, they got desperate. And so knowing that Zach had failed, or they had failed him, I think is more appropriate. They didn't have the right kind of structure around him to groom him into the quarterback that he needed to be in the NFL. But when that failed, they got desperate, and they go and they grab an aging Aaron Rodgers, which on paper sounds amazing. But Aaron Rodgers isn't the same player that he was when he was 36 years old or 37 or even 38. And coming to a new environment on a bad turf, which is something you have to consider because so many people have gotten hurt on this AstroTurf at MetLife Stadium, it almost felt like it was inevitable that this kind of destruction, this kind of falling apart was going to happen to this Jet team. And now it's gotten worse with the firing of Joe Douglas, and they're just resetting now in place. The question is, what happens with Aaron Rodgers going forward?
The New York Jets culture has been broken for quite some time, and Aaron Rodgers was not going to be the one to repair that. The fact is, when he's been on the shelf the last year and change, he produced more headlines that would lead you to divisiveness and would lead you to getting concerned if you're a Jet fan than you would be hopeful of what the New York Jets situation is. And they not only brought him in, and I can understand, I'll give the Jets credit for this, and Dan Patrick brought this up on your show, Jeremy, in the last episode. He said he at least understands that the Jets went for it. They went and took a shot. It didn't work out. But they not only got him, look at how much they've done to sell their soul for him to go out and basically control what their moves are organizationally. The quarterback position is the most important, perhaps in all of sports. I think that is the absolute truth in any sport.